And we are now here with Jessica Reif Ehrlich, the Managing Director of Media and Entertainment of U.S. Equity Research at Bank of America. Jessica, that is a long title, but it fits for what you do. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I will say, I heard you on Tuesday night's earnings call with Netflix, which I do love that they've kind of shifted that format and analysts actually get to ask questions now. But a lot of that was focused on sports around WWE. There was a question about the UFC and then around the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight and how that's driven the record 19 million subscribers Netflix has had. I'm curious your thoughts about Netflix's strategy around sports this past quarter.
There is a lot going on at Netflix, and sports, of course, is just one element and the newest element. They came out of the fourth quarter, which they reported on Tuesday, with a bang. 19 million net ads that they reported were shocking on the upside. And the immediate thought was that it was due to sports, which management was adamant. It was sports, but also other content. But clearly sports helped, did not hurt. So they created an event, the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson event. It was just a totally made up event that they put together. But the viewership was insane. And not only was it massive, but given the time, the next day viewing was very significant. It was a huge uplift. And everyone knew the outcome already. So that says a lot about Netflix's platform. The two NFL games on Christmas was such a huge hit. Having Beyonce doing the halftime, two really good games, having amazing global viewership really sets the stage for Netflix to do more in sports. And the WWE numbers, which are actually Q1 of 25, also like more than doubled linear, what it was doing when that was aired on linear. So the stage is set, and they've obviously had a really good experience, but they're pretty clear they're not in the rental of sports business, without a profit. And so we expect them to take a somewhat different approach than traditional media. But we do expect them to get bigger in sports because all of their competitors, whether it's traditional media, NBC, NBCU, Fox, Disney, so does Apple and Amazon, and Google. So they will, I think, get bigger. They talked about women's soccer in, I guess it's summer of 27. But there are other things that they can do. And that's kind of the question. Will the NFL create an 18th game for them? Will they get more aggressive? It seems like they will get more aggressive in women's sports, which is still, they're growing incredibly strongly, but they're also still, the value is there. And so, like women's volleyball is starting to take off. Like, how much would they have to pay for that? So there are things they can do in sports, and they can create content around that. But from a Netflix perspective, remember, they've introduced this advertising platform, which is finally scaling up. And so 55% of net ads are now going right onto the advertising platform. It's less expensive. It's only 4 to 5 minutes of advertising versus 15 to 20 minutes on linear. So it's palatable, great for advertisers because it's branded premium content. You know what you're getting. It's not user generated. So I guess the last point on advertising is that even if you're a Netflix subscription only subscriber, you're getting ads. Like everybody's going to get those ads because there are natural breaks in the game. So for them, it's really an incredible opportunity and should expand their platform in a number of ways. So the global platform, I think, is fabulous, and they can do a lot with sports that others can't because of the stories that they create.
Yeah, Jessica, I totally agree with you that the potential for an 18th NFL game opens up so many opportunities for Netflix, and they've laid the groundwork with these Christmas Day games. 25 million or so viewers for each of those, like really came out of the gate strong on NFL viewership. So something I'm keeping an eye on as well. I want to turn quickly to the virtual MVPD space a little bit. Molly and I have talked about on here that deal that was done between Hulu plus Live TV and Fubo that kind of cleared the way, we thought, for venue sports to potentially get off the ground. That obviously got a quick nail in the coffin there. That was shortly followed by DirecTV coming out with that My Sports package. Were you surprised at all how quickly these things developed, after that Hulu Fubo deal?
There was almost no need for venue after the Hulu Fubo deal because, they're creating their own skinny bundle, and it was duplicative, plus Dish and DirecTV. And then, of course, WBD did not get the NBA, so that made it maybe a little bit less palatable. So there were just like a number of things that led to the decline. I think it's just the lawsuit to begin with, and the fact that they lost that first round, like that was the whole thing was a surprise. So venues days seemed to be marked from the beginning, and it honestly, the audience for that was probably relatively small.
You know, I talk about half the NFL package there. At least this My Sports thing from DirecTV, you have those Comcast NBCU channels. No CBS yet, but 75% of the NFL package is better than 50, I suppose.
Jessica, it's not a skinny bundle, but which I do think we will see more of. I think we will see cable companies start to develop more sports-oriented packages that include streaming. That's just my own personal thought. But so not a skinny bundle, but ESPN is launching its direct-to-consumer product flagship second half of the year, fall 2025. What are your thoughts around there? Do you think flagship is there room in the marketplace for it? Do you think it'll be successful for Disney?
It's interesting. Look, none of us have seen it, but the way Disney talks about what it will be, it will be the ESPN on steroids. There'll be some personalization and sports betting and all kinds of other, add-ons for a sports fanatic. How many sports fanatics there are? Like, it's hard, I'm not sure that we know the answer to that. I mean, I think there are 25% of the audience, maybe is like really, or 20 to 25% is the number we've always heard of diehard sports fans who'll pay, extreme prices. But, I like Disney's hybrid approach. They're not taking ESPN off of pay TV, out of the bundle. So you're not forcing people to go into ESPN flagship. And ESPN will be in a lot of these bundles too. So it's unclear. There's no way you could say without having seen it, knowing the exact price and knowing what all these other bundles will be, how successful will they be. I guess we consider it a success if they can get a meaningful number, millions of incremental subs, cord cutters or cord nevers that are not in the bundle. That would be to expand the platform for Disney, for ESPN, which is the single most important sports brand. Subjective opinion, but I think like it's an incredible brand domestically and really globally. So if they can increase their audience, I would consider it as a success. And they're not going to spend a lot of money on this. They'll put their marketing muscle behind it, but most of the content are things that Disney already owns. So it's not a massive incremental step up. It's just being where consumers are and being there for them and making sure that ESPN branded content is available.
Jessica, you mentioned Warner Brothers Discovery as part of that venue package and how them losing the NBA rights means it really wasn't as valuable as it was when they first created it. And I'm looking at the future of Warner Brothers Discovery this year, maybe into 2026 even. Do you see, especially given maybe the new regulatory nature with the new administration, them maybe going after a broadcast TV network? Does a Fox and WBD tie-up potentially make sense out there for the market?
There are so many potential combinations for WBD that make sense. So fingers crossed that the regulatory environment does loosen and that, we can see a moving around of assets. So let's take a step back. The big surprise when Comcast announced SpinCo was that they were before WBD. So that alone may create the vehicle for a cable network roll-up. And if they do that, and they do buy some of eventually, WBD subsequently announced a plan to restructure. So it's a prelude to restructuring, in our view. If there is a roll-up and some of these assets combine, Mark Lazarus has a sports background, and we can talk about Comcast SpinCo, and, I'll get to WBD, but it'll be interesting to see what their plan is because sports should probably be a big part of that. But on WBD specifically, we see a number of potential scenarios for them. They don't have a broadcast network, and it's one thing that would go extremely well with their assets. If they split the company into linear on one hand and the studio with Max on another, they would look very much like the new NBCU, especially if they could get a broadcast network. And Fox is really strong in sports and has a broadcast network. It makes perfect sense. Also, you could go down another road, which, maybe not be as much sports related. If these assets indeed are separated, linear from the Warner Brothers studio and Max, then our view is that Warner Brothers would not be standalone for very long because it has the biggest and best, deepest, most successful, least plummeted it just, it's like a lot of that library hasn't seen the light of day. Unlike some of the other studios where their libraries have been rehashed and gone over multiple times. So it's an incredible asset. And we think there are a number of companies that would be interested in that standalone Warner Brothers studio with Max, like a Netflix or a Sony or NBCU or all of Comcast or a combination with Fox. I mean, the list goes on and on, even in Amazon, which, is another place. There's just, it's such a unique asset that the next 1 to 2 years should be incredible for this industry.
Yeah, when you start thinking about it in terms of the fangs as bidders for a Warner Brothers Discovery, it really opens up a whole new world of options.
Absolutely. So hopefully the regulatory environment loosens up. Certainly, definitions of what the marketplace is should change from even 5 years ago.
Well, we're definitely in our M&A era, it seems. But I want to shift to a different property that Austin and I have gone back and forth about a lot, and there seems to be consensus. But UFC, Jessica, what are you hearing? Like, I'm hearing they want $1 billion. Will they get that? And if so, who pays up for it?
TKO, the parent company of UFC, is covered by a team member. Brent Navon covers it for us. And our value for UFC, and it may be low, is 1.8 times, which is below the $1 billion with the average annual rights fee. But so to get to $1 billion, it would have to be a 2 multiple. So maybe not that far off. But I think the conversations that we've heard in the industry are, maybe they split up some of these rights. And if that's the case, if some of it stays with ESPN and some of it goes to Amazon, for example, or someone else, then you could definitely, you can create a path to getting $1 billion, which is, the number that seems to be floating around. It's a possibility, but it's not our base case for TKO.
Far be it from Ari Emanuel to be aggressive with evaluation.
That's hysterical.
We also talked a little bit about Spinco, and one of the channels in that is Golf Channel. Does it make sense for Golf Channel to remain with that suite of networks, given that it is so sports specific and the others are maybe more entertainment related? Is this something that maybe the PGA Tour should look at acquiring?
The thing that the market, Wall Street, should really take note of is when they announced Spinco, they announced the management team. So Mark Lazarus as CEO and Anand, for the CFO of NBCU, going to be the CFO of Spinco, and they're two greatly admired executives. And then they subsequently have announced, more of the management team. It's really impressive. But when it came out that Mark was going to be the CEO, I was like, you can't call this shitco or, yes, the linear assets are a challenge business, but Mark is an incredible executive, very experienced, and has tons of experience in sports. So again, they haven't announced their game plan, but our expectation would be they beef up sports, don't get rid of sports. I mean, sports and news, you just look at Fox and that sports and news, the live events, you need to see them. There's an immediacy to them. And so I'd be surprised if they were to sell Golf Channel. When they articulate their strategy, we'll see, but it would be a big surprise if they start to sell down sports assets.
Sticking with Comcast, the NBA was such a huge storyline all of 2024. Do you think Comcast overpaid for that deal that's starting in October?
How do I say this? I mean, there's some strategic value to having the NBA, or Comcast wouldn't have paid as much as they are. It's a giant step up. No way around that one. And it's hard to see how they make money immediately, maybe over the life of the contract. They're, depending on how they monetize it, that it's clear that it has tremendous value for Peacock and for NBC. And, it's a critical sport. It gives them year-round programming, which is, for churn, it's the most important thing you can have.
Yeah.
It's great for their advertising platform. And our view is that Comcast and NBCU get bigger, not smaller. And there will be consolidation of some of these streaming platforms. How do you compete with Netflix that added 19 million that adds in one quarter? They're going to have to combine. It's obvious, and they seem pretty open to it. The three smaller ones. So ultimately, it should be a greatly enriched property with the NBA, but likely with another partner. But it's a long-term bet on the part of Comcast.
Well, like you said, it's tonnage, on Peacock for over like a 6 month period. I think that's what a lot of people maybe not don't realize yet about this new deal is that just the tonnage of games that are going to be
Exactly.
on Peacock, starting next fall.
I think the concern right now with the NBA is that the ratings have been weak, but it's early in the season, and as we get closer, as the season goes on, it gets a little bit more exciting, and hopefully ratings will start to come back.
TNT in particular has been really good about backloading their schedules in recent years, and they made that huge jump after Christmas Day, going from like down 15 to down 3 to 5% now. So I agree that if they can get closer to flat, like it just shows that while it's not growing gangbusters like it may have done during those, heyday Warrior years, it does show that it is a steady, media property with a young demo.
Young demos, so important really for like the zeitgeist of the culture. Like it's, younger demos and male and, the players like are brands themselves. So there's a lot that we'll see what they do with it because there's a lot that can be done with the NBA. It's an incredible sport and it could be bigger globally. Right now, Peacock isn't global, but we'll see what happens. Like we think there are going to be tremendous changes as we already discussed. And so depending on who they could partner with or buy or merge, like depending what it looks like in a few years, this could be a much bigger asset than we see today.
I want to ask you a little bit about Main Street Sports Group, that's formerly Diamond Sports Group. What is just your general perception of the regional sports network landscape? Is it still just a federal disaster area?
From my perspective, the companies that I follow, the best thing they did was, get rid of the arsons. So it hasn't been on my personal radar as much, because it's just so challenged, given the pay TV universe, given the pricing. And you're starting to see, look at these battles that Altice is now having with some of their content, particularly with sports, the battle they have right now with MSG. So nobody wants to pay up. And especially with subs declining and viewership like this challenge. So it's a very challenged business. And there will have to be some significant structural changes.
I mean, who knew the Justice Department was doing Disney such a favor years back when they made Fox spin those off as part of that deal? Wow.
Right, right, right. I thought you were going to say something else with government, but yes, that's 100% true.
Jessica, before we let you get out of here, we've covered a lot of topics, but I am curious, what is the biggest sports storyline you're watching in 2025 so far?
There is a lot going on. I think if the NFL creates an 18th game, uh, and you don't want to get the last game of the season because it's pretty much over at that point. So, they have to create a package that's actually attractive for Netflix if that's where they're going. With the NBA done, I think it's, a lot of the discussions that we hear on sports are women's sports, which are growing tremendously in value. So that is kind of the next hot area, I think, incredibly attractive area for investment. But then just M&A, because a lot of the things that we've already discussed to all these different companies, depending on what assets they wind up with, most of them will want to get bigger in sports. The sports is such an important driver for advertising, for subs, for churn reduction, for every part of their business. And the more sports that you control with, your cost base, I think it's so critical to the business plans of these companies. So I think sports remains, as always, front and center for the year ahead.
Jessica Reif Ehrlich from Bank of America, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys are great.